All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to my big crowd here. Well, welcome to, oh, I'm ahead here. Let me go back. Now I'm stuck.
I have to click on it.
Is the clicker not working? Sorry. I really should have used my laptop. I'm so sorry. Carolina, can you help me out here? I'm not sure why my clicker isn't working, but no, I'm manually doing it here. I'm good. This isn't working. So we'll just have to use the screen presenters. Okay, thank you everybody for your patience with this. We wanted to get everything set up here. I'm Olivia Hereford and I'm facilitating this session, but I want to give a lot of shout outs to my friends and colleagues here. Welcome to those of you who are on Zoom. Our panel today, it really isn't a panel. We're going to come up one at a time and share with you what we're doing on the ground. We had a great setup yesterday. There was a session yesterday on artificial intelligence and why it's going to be really important to career education. And Dr. Stephen, I don't remember his first name, but he really gave us the 30,000-foot look. And what this session is about is what's actually going on the ground. And so I'm really glad that you are here to join us. We in the Bay Area have been developing a project to implement artificial intelligence and data analytics curriculum into our programs, assisting our colleges to do that. And so I raised my hand to talk about that project under development. And since then, we had Wendy Porter come and join us, and she's going to do the deep dive into that part of the project. So that's why I say a little help from my friends here, because Wendy's going to come in and talk about what we're doing at the BACCC. And then this is all about a partnership. And so our partnerships are with primarily industry. You heard yesterday from Intel. We are an Intel partner. We have some exciting things going on there that Wendy's going to talk about as well. We've been working with our data analytics partners. But most importantly, professional development. We have Richard has been helping us an awful lot. And Carolina is here to really talk about how she's really cooperating with and working with one of our partners, Alteryx. And then one of the things that's part of our Bay Area project is we really want to make sure that we have the K-12 connection. And Alex Cochran, who's the founder and CEO of the AI Education Project, is a partner in that effort. So I'm going to give a really quick overview of why we're doing this. As you heard yesterday, AI is impacting everything that we do. And we need to be able to think about preparing our students, and I think the public in general, on how we're going to navigate and work with this in this environment. So the AI curricula that we're looking at is technical. Students, or maybe learn how to code with the intent of guiding them into AI-related jobs, but that's not always the entry of how we get there. It's traditionally been on a transfer track type of program, but one of the things that we're finding is that that's really not addressing the workforce need. Recent research that we did, over 10,000 jobs last year online. Again, you look at these positions, they're on the data science track. And so you have to wonder, how are we going to address that? How do we create more on-ramps to these types of jobs? They're well-paying jobs. They're well-paying jobs. But I take a look at what we have to do with AI, very similar to the way I look at IT and computer science. Computer science is, the development, the design, the creation, but it's the ICT part of the work that comes in and implements, gets it done, supports it, sustains it. And there are those similar roles in AI, and it's primarily around data analytics. Dr. Stephen yesterday seemed to be a stumper on Forbes. Richard invited about a year and a half ago, Richard invited Aaron Bursiaga to one of our partnership our BayICT partnership meetings. And Aaron told us about blue collar AI. And blue collar AI, by what he means is that if these are the people that support the data scientists, support the people that are trying to get intelligence out of data. And he called it blue collar because he calls them farmers who cultivate data, miners who extract the data for a particular application, and welders. Those are the presenters. They put it all together the way we really need to see it, or the decision makers need to see it. And then data analytics, I think that one of the things that's really important about that is that it, well, as AI as well, it crosses all sectors. You know, it's healthcare, manufacturing, you know, auto finance, ad tech, cyber, business HR, you know, how resumes are read and selected, and then advertising. And these are just, these are just examples of some of the jobs, AI supporting jobs. There's many of them, okay? But you can look at these and you see that some of them are specific to a particular industry, but the majority of them are not. Most businesses, it's not just a tech industry need. This is across all sectors. So I call it, I think of, you know, coming from ICT, and I remember what we went through with the Internet of Things, I call it the AI of things. It's pervasive. It's going to be, in everything and touching everything that we do. So we have to take a look at it from a broader perspective. So we do have to start with the whole pathway. We have to take a look at how we go from K-14 into, you know, our programs, and then even to transfer. I think we need to take a look at these are jobs that can get folks on the transfer pathway. And then one of the things too that is near and dear to my heart is, you know, the whole thing of equity perspective. And that is that AI has to be responsible, ethical, and equitable. You know, you look at things about how resumes are analyzed. Face recognition is a really big issue with people of color. These are the types of things I really think that we have to get our students who are thinking about this or being impacted this to realize that they have a role in making some of that change. And some of those things were talked about yesterday as well, about how we can train AI to be equitable, to be responsible and ethical. So how we're doing it at BACCC is that we are, again, partnering with industry, partnering with our education providers, being, you know, Alex will start, well, I'm going to turn it over to Alex, and then Richard's going to close it with what we're going to do with professional development. So before I bring Alex up, I want to check in with is there any questions from the audience or the folk on Zoom? Yes.
When we were looking at those job titles that you listed in the couple of slides, what were the education requirements listed on those job descriptions to get hired for these positions?
You know, John Crease is on the line, did an analysis for us, and quite a few of them were requiring a bachelor's degree. And I really think that that is, and that's the argument that Aaron makes, is that that's an assumption that you need a bachelor's degree. But we have several really strong, at least in the Bay region, we have several very strong data analytics programs where folk can go out and get these jobs. They're looking for the skills and knowing how to use things like Tableau, like, you know, Alteryx. They're looking for those kind of skills, but yet they'll still say a bachelor's degree. So we really do have to address those.
I think that's a historical holdover from IT jobs from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Still there. It's HR departments want to look at that. And hiring managers, they want skills. They want people that can do certain things, that know the technologies that are out there, how to use them. So.
Alex?
Yeah, Olivia, thank you so much for having us. So as Olivia said, I'm one of the founders of the AI Education Project. We're a nonprofit, and we've been working to bring curriculum to students about artificial intelligence and really empower them in all the different ways that they're going to be impacted in utilizing the technology into the future. I'm going to move relatively quickly. I don't want to make this about us, but just sort of to share some bona fides. So we've been around since 2019. And we're funded by many of the companies that are really thinking about the future of work and how artificial intelligences can be used across, as we've been talking about, every single sector in the economy. And I really would say that it's not just blue collar AI that's so interesting, it's even white collar jobs are not immune to a lot of these changes. And so everybody that's entered the workforce, full stop, needs to be ready. And you know, one of the things that we really have been focusing on is how do you bring technology education, how do you inspire students who are outside of the sort of traditional technology hubs where we kind of assume that a lot of these opportunities exist. And even in San Francisco and in the Bay Area, I think there's this assumption when you leave California, people say, well, oh, sure, the Bay Area, like students are having access and learning about, you know, the future of work and technology and artificial intelligence. And some students are, but many aren't. It's not uniform, even in the Bay Area. Certainly when you look sort of more broadly across the country, it's an even bigger problem. So the problem that we are trying to solve is really the highest level macro challenge, we think, which is the entire economy, our society is shifting. And we saw with the pandemic that can happen fast. It doesn't necessarily happen in a uniform, linear fashion. It can happen in these spurts. And the pandemic was one of those stimuli that actually prompted an acceleration of the adoption of technology, especially automation and artificial intelligence. Driven in this case by the need to just reduce the number of people that are doing any specific task. But you know, in the future could be a recession that prompts companies to utilize more of these automation tools. And so at the high level, this is definitely happening. You know, there's been studies that, you know, a couple of years ago, there was a study that found that nearly half of jobs are vulnerable to automation in the next one to two decades. And yet, you know, despite all of this, we see this happening before our eyes. And at conferences like this, I was just in San Diego for the ASU GSV Summit, and I saw every other panel was either about the future of work or emerging technologies. And so, you know, leaders and technologists are kind of under the assumption that everybody's talking about this. This is sort of in vogue, but in schools, it's not. You know, most students across the US don't do any career exploration in high school or middle school. And yet we're expecting them to be making, you know, critical decisions about what they're going to do afterward. And so the question for us, the question that we sort of pose for district leaders is, you know, how do you expect students to make smart decisions about what they're going to do after they graduate if they don't know what that future looks like, what that economy looks like? Because it's very different from the economy that, you know, our parents and that we are all familiar with. And it's not teachers' fault. It's not, you know, teachers are you know, paid to do a very specific task. They don't really necessarily have the mandate of, you know, keeping tabs with how technology is sort of shifting. And so that's kind of where, you know, the partners come in, is providing schools with information and content that helps excite students and gear them towards the opportunities that are actually going to exist for them. And this is a chart that I show. It just, you know, it's obviously changed quite a bit actually since even this chart was made. But essentially, if you look at the S&P 500, which is you know, one of the most important indexes that we use in the stock market, and you look at the share of the index based on companies that utilize technology or technology companies, they make a really, really outsized share of our economy. And this is a forward-looking projection of value. So in the financial world, in our economy, this has already happened, right? Like technology is already sort of taken over. And every student is going to be a technologist in some way. They're going to be using technology. They're going to be providing data for technology. They're going to be finding creative ways to implement it. And Olivia, you talked about AI, the AI of things. You know, another sort of thing that people are talking about in the AI space is AI as a service. And so the analogy would be, not everybody needs to know how to code a website anymore. No, I don't know HTML, but I've built many websites because there are services now that, you know, don't require me anymore to be the developer of the technology, but I'm still a user of it. And AI is moving in that direction. It's already being provided to companies where they're not actually developing the models themselves, but they're thinking about how would I apply a model in a specific way. And so when you think of that paradigm, it sort of expands the space of companies and trajectories that are both vulnerable and also can benefit from implementing the technology. So that's basically what we do. So we built a curriculum that it's non-technical. So this isn't teaching students to become an AI developer. It's teaching students to become a user and in some cases consumer of artificial intelligence. And so to do that, it's based on a core project-based learning activity. But the goal is to not just teach them about data and models and AI ethics, but also 21st century skills and career exploration. And because AI touches every single corner of the economy, it's a really powerful way of both doing technology education and also career exploration at the same time. So we launched this in 2020, ended up growing to reach 30,000 students using a remote learning model. We're actually in the process of actively piloting in-person curriculum right now with schools across the US, including in California. And so, yeah, I'll close with that. So, where we fit into this whole ecosystem, we're going to hear from a lot of other folks who are, in other phases of the pipeline. We are really at that very initial phase where you're trying to spark interest and excite students to understand what these sort of pathways will look like. And the goal, if we're successful, is for the programs that you're going to be learning about, later in the presentation, how do we get as many students into those programs as possible? How do we make sure that students are aware of not just the existence of those programs, but why those credentials and certifications and 2- and 4-year pathways can actually help them pursue things that they're passionate about, even if they don't think of themselves as a STEM student in the traditional sense. I'll just pause there, actually. I know that we have a lot more to cover, so I don't know if there are any questions.
Any questions for Alex?
Can you say more just about how your scale this across the system? Would say up here that you're at partnership with the
Yeah, so I mean, what you're looking at is really, I would say, a relatively early draft of what we think an approach could look like. So this isn't actually baked in stone, but at a very high level, what we see is you move from proof of concept with individual teachers and classrooms to district-wide partnerships, and then an alignment and insertion into community college pathways. So right now, in sort of the conversations we've had, there's been a lot of interest in a full pathway, sort of a full-length course that sits in high school. It could be dual enrollment is one of the sort of more obvious pathways there. And so the outcome of that course, that students are then sort of moving forward into one of probably a variety of different pathways that they can take. One example of this, so is Skyline College in San Bruno partnered with us as part of their alternative pathways to technology.
Yeah.
And it's exactly what the title suggests, which is it's for students who aren't necessarily going to work at Google and getting a 4-year degree in computer science, but there are these alternative pathways like in health technology and cybersecurity that will still get them into that technology pathway.
And I think that project was funded by K-12. So
I think it was.
yeah, like I said, one thing I was curious about is whether you were trying to utilize that funding stream to.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'd like to.
But that there will be another round of grants coming up in the fall. It's a competitive process, so I think one challenge is like how you get that opportunity out to K-12s so that they could write projects, proposals for grants that would incorporate this.
Yeah, the biggest challenge that we face is that when you initially talk to teachers and even district leaders and you say AI education, there's this first blush reaction, which is like, that's too complicated for me. There's a lot of intimidation that comes from even just sort of sense that people have about the technology. And so usually what we do first is just sort of building general awareness that this is kind of like the internet. You don't have to be, on the developing side to be influenced by it and impacted by it and actually utilizing it. And when you frame it like that, I think teachers kind of understand like this is actually about career exploration, it's about digital literacy, it's about social emotional learning. All the things that they're actually really focused on and have directives to focus on and to work on, and connects with those.
And as the gentleman's name from Intel is not one of the people we haven't met yet, but he did mention that the first part of their curriculum is just foundational, very similar to the approach to the awareness that Alex is talking about. And Winnie could probably talk about it a little bit more, but there would be an opportunity there for the connection from the Intel pathway to the high schools, because that the first class or two is no code, or what do you say, no code, low code. It's like it's really not about the technology, it's about the world and how it's impacted.
So it focuses on the consumer end of it so that they can be exposed to how it works. Is that like how to talk to Siri, or is that like taking a Raspberry Pi and making a rudimentary, one that they can interact with? What are the experience from students? What are the projects?
Yes, it's both. So when you like, I think we have a truncated version of what Intel does in terms of they have a much more robust and sort of larger array of curriculum. But we start with this conceptual awareness. So Siri would be one example, TikTok is another example. So actually connecting AI with tools and apps that students are familiar with and using on a day-to-day basis. And then we do actually, I mean, the core project that students are building in our curriculum is they're building a model, they're building a logistic regression model where AI is actually addressing a specific problem they identify. And so while they're not actually building the model itself, they're identifying the problem that AI can solve. They're figuring out the questions they have to ask to make a prediction for the AI to help the AI make a prediction. And then they're collecting the data, they're thinking about data. And then they actually plug it into this pre-built model. It spits out an app that they can then share with friends and family. And then we move into 21st century skills, which is, how do you iterate on your product? How do you present it to a group, and how does it fit into your portfolio, perhaps? So there's actually quite a lot. I mean, we advised the Ohio Department of Education, which is rewriting their computer science standards to include AI education throughout. And that's one of the pieces, is that throughout each standard, when we talk about them, we think about, what are some of the easier ways to get students to engage in some of these concepts that don't necessarily require them to have a Raspberry Pi that they're coding.
Yeah, there are many services that the big cloud providers, AWS and Google, they all provide AI services. Like AWS has Poly, which is just a service that allows you to convert text to speech. But that is use the tool to learn how to use it, and having that knowledge and knowing how to do that is really powerful.
So we have the AI, I see it's a compass, you said surface, and then there's so many things that underneath that makes the AI, right? I mean, I'm saying, for example, so I'm looking from an education standpoint, right? Because we use Facebooks, Twitters, TikToks. Our students use them, and we all, though we are technology users, not necessarily, or we don't get jobs in that field, right? So it's just the people who are developing that technology, they get the job at whatever level. So there is an awareness component of education that this is what AI. How do we get into, if you wanted to be part of the technology developing side, not the consuming side? Because I feel that part of this awareness is to create a consumer base that is intelligent enough to use the technology so they can have a market share. That's what with any company you do, right? Facebook, anything else. So how are we going to be teaching our students not to be a technology user, but a technology creator? That's why I find struggle with anything. So companies already doing, I need you or your job, first of all. That they're creating market share. How would we teach our students to be technology creator, not the user?
Yeah, but there's not a shortcut. I mean, you have to actually do intensive schooling to build those skills. And the question is, and it's not just 4-year degrees, right? There are credentials that you can get where you're at least going to begin to build, even if you're not necessarily a computer engineer. But I think the challenge is, how do you actually get students excited and motivated to pursue those opportunities? And to be motivated, you have to first be there. It has to feel culturally relevant to you as a student.
I have done this work. I'm sharing my experience. I've done these exercises with a lot of students, right? For example, say, what are you interested in? So I'm using in graphic design, right? They say, great. So we just said, let's look at which company are you going to be the user of graphic design? Creating the graphic design. And I said, let's look at Adobe, right? So everybody used Adobe Photoshop. Then I look at, let's go through the jobs they have in Adobe or Disney, right? Now they're excited. When you go and look at the skills of those, right? Those are not average single person skills they're asking for. They're looking for senior software engineer with that many. So they are really very high level
schools and showing them robots, right? So it's the same concept. We have to expose their parents, their teachers, and everybody. Hey, AI is not that scary. Look, we're going to play with some little tools, and it's going to, help you to get them excited about maybe math and science or whatever else.
And that's why we're pairing our project with data analytics. Because that is an on into artificial intelligence. And there's some really cool things being done. Like someone shared with me yesterday, a program that's showing kids how NBA statistics are brought up right away, how you're showing the arcs of all of the.
Yeah, you have to go to where they're at, right?
Yes, right,
Talking
exactly.
this, they
And
were
that
talking
gets
about-
them excited
Yeah.
about how
Add it to
how
Lego.
data is used to do that.
You add it to Lego Mindstorms. You don't take a computer science class and bring it to junior high and tell them, hey, you're gonna get 3 units of college credit.
Yeah,
They're gonna fail, the parents are gonna get mad, and everybody's upset, and all your partnerships are crashed.
so we hear you, and I think it's just, as Richard was saying, that's just been a perception we've been dealing with for a long time, and we're just having to find on-ramps. I call them on-ramps to these careers that
think that
are
would be-
driven by some passion
Yes.
that the
I think
student.
that is a worth study, because the reason is, since 2000, whatever, two, a lot of awareness is going on, but that is not translating into actual students pursuing degrees in that.
Right.
It's not, that'd be good to see. It is, even in manufacturing, we had a very good pathway when we look for, you want to go to degrees? No, I don't want to do this. I've already experienced this. I think our students' psychology in a way is they want to experience it, not necessarily go into pursuing further, but that's hard work. What I'm saying is there's something there. We're going to be rarely, like if I were to say 1% of the students that go into Lego robotics and vector robotics and Mindstorms and all that, they actually pursue engineering or anything else. They don't.
Well, because our higher education pathways need to change too. If you go to the CSU and the UCs, you finally get the students there, but the teaching at those levels are still the same. They're still teaching theory. My daughter is in her junior year of mechanical engineering. And, she started with the Legos, the teams came, showed her robots. Oh, girls can go in this field, it's totally cool. But heck, the second you step on that campus,
Yeah.
oh no, here's the hard physics, here's the thermodynamics, you don't touch anything. You don't go in those spaces, it's all theory. Where's your derivatives, where's your calculus? So if there's still no connection to the
It's changing a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm at San Francisco State in the
Yeah.
engineering
Oh,
department. We teach tech. And so
But are you in
Yeah.
engineering tech or
I'm
engineering?
not, I'm a social scientist. I'm tech.
Yeah, so it's,
So it's changing a little bit, and there's a lot of
slowly.
pressure to do that because companies like Google are designing their own thing.
Right.
So
Yeah.
people,
But students need to know
Well, I
to do
want to
that.
be conscious
Sorry.
of time.
Sorry.
We've got 3 more people here, folks. So, Wendy.
We have
Yeah.
5 minutes.
Oh, it's not that great. The arrows are working.
I believe so.
Hi, everybody. I'm Wendy Porter. Thank you for introducing me, Olivia. I'm helping out on the Bay Area AI and data analytics project. And so it's really great to hear all of the intro that Olivia gave us. Of course, we all know, we've heard over the past 2 days, and we just know from experience that data analytics, artificial intelligence, and data as a whole is really the lifeblood that's driving strategic business decisions, strategic organizational decisions, and that's not going to change. And so right now, our businesses are becoming aware of this, some more than others, and they're in a panic to try and hire very high-level data scientists to solve some of these challenges. And those positions come with, they need a lot of experience, they need a lot of education, you have to pay them a lot, and these people are really difficult to find. And so, that's a huge challenge for our businesses. And so what they're thinking now is, well, what if we look at a process of bringing in some entry-level people with some basic level skills, we train them up from the bottom up. And that's where the community colleges step in. So this is what we're good at. This is what we can do. So it's in the Bay Area, we've decided to take a regional approach to this project. And so the AIDA project is an effort to try to pool resources and funding to make sure that we have the kind of curriculum in place to support artificial intelligence and data analytics education to address the workforce gap that we're seeing that Olivia outlined so well. And so once again, we can't do this without our partners. So we've done some research in looking all over California and the United States to find existing programs out there. And you'll hear from Carolina a little bit later. She's got a gem of a program down south. We also found in Arizona, in the Maricopa College District, they have a great program, and they've partnered with Intel to put this program together. And so we reached out to them, we interviewed them, started working with them, and we discovered the most amazing thing. So one of the people that were instrumental in creating their program, Angel Fuentes, actually moved to the Bay Area and is working as a dean at Laney College. So when we got in touch with him, we realized he was just a little overwhelmed with, I want to bring this to the Bay Area. How am I going to do this? And we happened to call him. So it was just perfect timing, perfect synergy. So we're really happy to be working with him, and all of his experience that he brings to this project is going to really make it super successful. As far as the industry partners that we're working with, obviously, Intel's a big partner. They're willing to contribute not only curriculum, but our program reviews. I want to make it clear that while, we're working with other partners too, like AIDA for the K-12 pathway alignment, and Alteryx and Tableau and IBM and Google, Intel is a strong partner, but we don't want to be teaching only Intel-based information to our students. So we're going to be incorporating the different pieces into the curriculum, and we'll be using our industry partners to review those overall findings. So that's how our partnerships come in. Now we do have 9 colleges. If we look at our Bay Area programs right now, we have 9 colleges that have, each of them have a lot of data analytics programs, either courses or certificates or associate's degrees. There's just a tiny little scratch of AI going on. So there's a few courses. One of our colleges does have a certificate program. So we discovered that the focus on developing new programs needs to be in the AI space. So with that, so how are we going to do this? First, before I talk a little bit about this, I want to go back into the definition. So data science is the big overall umbrella. Data analytics is finding patterns in existing data in order to make good decisions. And artificial intelligence is the approach to try to automate those efforts through applying human intelligence to machines. So machine learning fits into AI. So that's my favorite short description of this, because it can get complicated and people can just start lumping things together. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. So, so for the AI, since we don't have as much going on in the Bay Area, we're going to take the approach of developing a center of excellence and use that with a flagship college. And so that college will be able to offer the support and resources to colleges who want to begin working in AI programs, get curriculum going, and get the support resources they need. And that, of course, they'll have stackable certificates, and we're going to be developing an associate's degree for that. So on the data analytics side, since we already have a lot of existing programs, colleges have been building these things in silos. And so we want to make sure that there is a model curriculum that can be followed, and that it can be a community built around it so that faculty can share their experiences and resources and to help improve all the programs that are already there and grow them. And then, of course, as with always, we want to make sure that we are, for both of these approaches, we're going to be including workshops and professional development, communities of practice, train the trainer, all that good stuff. And the model curriculum, definitely. And then, to go back to Alex, it's so important for us to look at the K-12 and CSU pathway alignment. So we need to spark that interest in the high schools. We need to figure out, how not to get them into the college system and get them disinterested once they were interested in high schools. We're paying a lot of attention to that, and we're working with our K-12 pathway coordinators, as well as our industry partners, to make sure that we're addressing this from the beginning. So this is just a sneak peek of some of the Intel curriculum that has already been developed and what we want to do for artificial intelligence. We have a really good PDF to share that we can, if anyone's interested, we can share that out to you. It has a lot more detail and information. We don't have a lot of time to go over this, but the awareness piece is so important. So there's a lot of misconceptions around the terminology used around data analytics and data science and artificial intelligence and machine learning. So we need to wrap our heads around that, get students to understand, what is the terminology? How do we talk about it? How are these technologies used within the software itself, but also, out within the community? And the piece that fits into awareness, this is where we tie into K-12. Like Olivia, I think you had mentioned this as well. And the other area that this falls into is no code, low code. So we're talking about the ethics in AI. This is where that sits. So because AI is pervasive through everything in all different industry sectors, we will do this cross-disciplinary work to provide pieces of curriculum that can fit into other departments and expose people to the awareness of AI, the terminologies, and the importance of ethical and responsible development of the technologies. So, foundation, that's more like what are the technical skills needed? What's the technology that's involved in artificial intelligence? Experience is more, how do we use this? What are the different tools, and how do we use those tools? But the best part, the part that I love the most, is the capstone, the experience, the capstone and the practical training. So this is where our industry partners come back in to working with us. And so this isn't a one-off working with our industry partners. It's not just to help get curriculum developed and approved. It's an ongoing relationship to make sure that they're engaging with us. So getting a group of students, maybe a cohort, maybe a one student, depending on how it works, work on projects for industry partners. And that exposes our students to that industry. It helps with we've done this before in other colleges and in other work, and it's such a great way for our industry partners to see the value in certain students and to kind of scout out particular talent, especially when it's this small work-based type of learning experience. And this is where all of the other work-based learning opportunities kind of will fit into our program. So we're hoping to develop internship opportunities, job shadowing, all of that great stuff, and that will get down into the K-12 space as well, not just community college level. So that's a sneak peek. I only had a few minutes. I don't know if anyone has questions. We've just started this work, so we're at the very beginning of this. The way that the regional project process works is the project gets proposed, and then the college voting members need to vote for it to fund it. So we're kind of in that stage, and then the real work will start after that. But we're just extremely grateful to all the industry partners that we've worked with who are supporting this effort, and every single program that I reached out to, like Carolina, they've all been extremely welcoming and sharing what their experience has been. And so we're kind of a step up since we're starting this right now. We're able to leverage what has already been learned, lessons learned, that kind of thing. And I really just am grateful to all of our California community colleges who have helped us in supporting this. So thank you.
Since we're running short of time, I'd like to have Carolina and Richard
Definitely.
Share what they, and hopefully we'll have a few minutes after to answer any questions.
All right. And I will just dovetail on what Wendy has said. Her tireless work with this region allowed me to come here because she did all her research and found our little college in Irvine, California. And we were already doing something with data analytics. And so I'd like to say I'm happy to be in the room and to share our work on the ground, Olivia, as you mentioned. And so here we go. This is as a result of the partnerships that have become possible through the data analytics pathway. Alteryx is one of the best of breed platforms for data analytics. So they are housed in Irvine. So they were a natural regional fit for us. They hosted an educators training, like they sponsored us to come to on-site, look at their facilities. They fed the teachers, also 12 teachers and community college. So we are an Alteryx curriculum partner. They have educator portals and so many things. They have a community of practice, just a screenshot of the Spark Ed community of educators. One of the benefits of becoming an educator with Alteryx is you get their learning resources. So we wanted to partner with industry that had curriculum that was ready, that had learning objectives that were clear, that fit our 18-week, 16-week model. They were also able to give us free licensing. That's huge for us, right? And they do have that 12-year free license for campuses. They have the customer support, you know, they were really good about partnering with education. They also had some fun things, like they have podcasts and mixers. I go to a quarterly mixer with Alteryx educators in my local region. They have like kind of like captured flag competitions, just some nice things to do for fun, and you can education pathway. So there's an Alteryx certification as the end goal. I'm still working on mine. But we can easily use that and replicate that for our courses. And then I don't know how you would teach a data analytics class, but we really need case studies. We really need to have students see the big picture, starting with the problem statement, starting with the scope of work, and then looking at who are all the stakeholders and what are the decisions to make at the end of this. So they have wonderful case studies that we can access from high industries like aviation to fast food retail, all sorts of things that teachers can just pull. So that's why I love Alteryx. Also, they have these support groups. I just give you a screenshot of all the locations. I didn't see anything in the Bay Area, but I did highlight Orange County and San Diego. Hopefully there will be enough educator interest here, Wendy, that they can form their own educator regional, club, I should say. And here's what we're doing at IVC. I want to shout out to the IVC support people that are here today. Professor Mike Salviani, he's here. And then also our wonderful counselor, Fitzy Canis, you're here too to support us. Our students are now ready to learn, right? Like the misnomer on the side, not the already workforce. This is the already workforce. They're ready to learn. This is the pathway that is 100% online, right? You can see all the diversity of students, the non-traditional students, from accounting to real estate to, we even have IT folks also in this pathway. So, you're looking at two certificates, the one being the fundamentals Python to our programming, which are the open source tools. Guess what? The UCI program, UCI being 3 miles down from us, it's a $70,000 program that also starts with Python and our programming. We're $49 a unit. And then the CIM 252, which is our newest class, data analytics fundamentals. And Alex, I'm happy to say this is going to be a dual enrollment class. So we are going to serve this class also at Irvine Unified at one of the local high schools. So that's very exciting. So that's our first 9-unit certificate. Then we get into our 9-unit certificate for certification. As you can see, students can take the data analytics design that maps to Alteryx certification, followed by data analytics visualization that maps to Tableau. I should mention Tableau is a great education partner as well. And then the capstone course, which you're already thinking about, which is synthesizing their soft skills, right? The project management, looking at the problem statement, scoping out the work, figuring out who the stakeholders are, and then using the data to make decisions. So hopefully that's going to be a great course. And then stackable is all about it, right? So we're gonna stack those two and then fit it into an AS degree. So serving that population that doesn't have a bachelor's, but definitely has the upskills now through our program to get the AS degree in data analytics. Thank you so much. And I bring up Richard.
Thank you. You're paving the
Thank you,
way.
Kelly.
Yeah.
That's great.
And she did it all by herself.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you, everybody. My name is Richard Grodigan, and I'm actually with the Western Academy Training Center. So I was a teacher for many years, 30 years at the community college, and always looking for faculty development, getting trained and getting to learn the kinds of things that we need to do to deliver to our students. So we started by providing support to Cisco Academy. So Cisco, this is their 25th year of partnering with colleges and with schools and delivering their training. But network is just part of what you need to know to work in the IT space. So we knew as teachers we had to learn other things as well and keep learning. So it's just, whoops, let me go back up here. So, and it got ever increasingly more difficult because there were more and more new skills, less and less training opportunities. And as a teacher, I knew that I needed to go and seek out the training wherever I could get it and to try to stay ahead of my students, at least by one day. And looking for those opportunities. And we had to partner with our industry folks to be able to get that training. And so that's how we got into making sure that there was enough training. We used to do face-to-face training, and this was our last faculty development week at Cabrillo College. Would be called a super spreader today, I think. But we needed to get together and work together, but it was costly to do that. And the pandemic kind of forced us to move virtually. And we had, the next time we met was virtual and just using Zoom. And I did do a workshop. We've gone into another platform and using the Engages platform, coding or anything, just know how to use this tool to put on events that have gamification and animation and collaboration all built into it. So this is faculty development week for this coming summer. So registration opens on Monday, and it's a medieval theme, so we're moving people to the medieval times, and so there are our theme is quest for knowledge in that case. So we found that doing things remotely really made it easier for our industry partners to participate. So this is the first year we're going for 3 weeks, and we have 24 different workshops. These are boot camps. They're 4.5 days, and we have 3 that are directly associated with what this program is trying to do. We've got the Intel AI for Workforce workshop that's scheduled. That's 4.5 days of doing a pretty deep dive into their curriculum. And then Alteryx is one of our partners too. And so they have connected with UiPath. So UiPath are sort of the farmers, right, that you talked about. And then Alteryx, they're the, what was the other, the farmers and the?
They're the miners.
The miners, yeah, they're going to help with the mining. And then we finish with introduction to data analytics with Tableau, and they're the ones that are going to weld this all together and visualize it for us. And they're related workshops. So again, their boot is a commitment. It's in June. It's 4.5 days. I know Michael's been to some of our workshops, and Caroline, I think you may have been there too. And it's only $50 for registration for each one of those weeks. So hopefully we could support additional training. Teachers need it. We need to be able to stay on top and stay ahead, and we need to have an inexpensive way to get that training as well. So.
And this is not just statewide, it's national. I mean, this is statewide, but we get.
Well, since we went virtual, people from all over
Yeah.
US, and we get interest from companies all over. I have some flyers up on the table here for some of the other workshops. So Google is doing a cloud foundations course. We have Oracle playing with us again and doing their cloud services, as well as AWS training as well. So, you know, we just need a participation in this. We have support with Strong Workforce Program to help us do these things on a limited budget, but keeping the cost down for our faculty members as well. The $50 is skin in the game. We give it away for free. We sometimes had some no-shows there. So we want to, $50 seems to be that key amount.
Yeah. Many of these, this is the best value for training you can find as a faculty member.
Thank you, Michael.
Go to all of them. I think it's just-
As many as you
Yeah.
can, yeah.
I have to admit, this is not my idea. This is something that happened with MPIC, Mid-Pacific ICT Center, an NSF supported grant, ATE grant, 15 years ago that got started with this idea.
And Moss is carrying it on.
Yeah, so they ran out of their funding ended, so we had to come up. WASTC is actually a community ed program, so it's not a grant funded program. We run out of Diablo Valley College as one of their legs of a four-legged stool that is part of their community education program. So we do charge for some of our training during the regular school year, and we do have membership. So all of our Cisco academies are members, and they pay a support fee each year. It's minor, minimal, but we have 300 partners, so they help us put on these types of events. All right, thank you.
We've got a couple of minutes for questions. If we have any questions? Zoom audience, I can't tell who's there.
So with your industry partners, do you guys do the job placement to your students?
I would ideally say yes on this, but we're too early to say on that. Yeah, we'd love to work with that next phase. That would be a phase 2.
Because they're giving so the industry partners are coming in and giving them the work-based skills and letting see what industry's like with them. They want to know how many of them do they hire or do they help them?
We would love to get that. Yes.
Most of the industry partners are not hired, so they have
Right.
customers who use their products, and that's where students come. So they help a little bit. Some of them are benefits. There's AWS does a pretty good job with that. And Cisco has this talent bridge.
Handoff would be nice.
Yeah.
And it helps that most of this are the market share leaders in this. So if you're going to a company, AWS, most companies know what AWS is, have people that work on AWS. Alteryx is nationally known, and Tableau is nationally known. So they're, if we picked a segment that had like 10% market share, it'd be very hard for them.
Like the concern is sometimes you give them the skills, the students, they're like, yeah, I can do it. They do really well in the class. Then when it comes to the practical application of going and applying for the job and going and interviewing and going and marketing themselves, I mean, and that's part of, all of our job here. But if the industry says, oh no, we're gonna hire 5 of your students from the cohort, then, they're really putting their skin in the game. Like they really value the partnership and then their piece of the education. If they really believe that they're doing a good job, they're gonna hire those students, right? Because they have grown that.
Right. It sounds like Wendy's regional consortium can have more meat in that.
Yeah, I mean,
Definitely.
I've seen some models that work so great by having that, even somebody in like the career services or job placement
Yes.
area as an internship coordinator. And there was a great presentation yesterday or the day before in San Diego. They're doing an amazing job with this. So I'm calling them directly because I am so impressed. And they're working with so not necessarily the industry partners like Richard said that are helping with curriculum development. And
Right.
actually no, but the local employers.
Their advisory board.
And part of that is those local smaller employers sometimes don't understand the need for data analytics and artificial intelligence. So there's an education component from our end to in that awareness, like you can get entry-level skills to help grow this team. They recognize that they need to be paying attention to data to make these strategic decisions. They just don't know how to do it, or how to build those employees.
Yeah, because otherwise they're gonna send all those jobs offshore.
Exactly, and they are.
They are.
Yes.
Yeah, they're struggling a little bit with that because like in the Bay Area, getting people from overseas, they're not getting as many as they want. It's really expensive. So they're looking locally for the talent. It's not quite the great deal that you used to bring in people from India
Or working remotely.
or working
Working
remotely.
remotely. A lot of people have left California.
Yeah.
To work remotely in different states.
Yeah, there's certain things that require them to stay here in the United States too.
The majority of the developers hire, they're working from anywhere. It's challenging.
One thing I did, so this was part of my MBA program, but I thought was really well done. One of the capstone classes at the end we had to break into groups. Our group had to reach out to industry, find a company that we could analyze something in the company and present them with here's a solution to how your store can be redesigned for better flow, or how you can design your HR. And we found a company, they took us in and they said, here's our data. We can do that. That might be a good way for first couple rounds to actually have a project where your students reach out to the industry.
And have a list of, these are some,
Companies.
examples. These are some examples of what we could do for you. I mean, what company would say no to that? So,
And that MBA program, companies that have been contacted previously have asked for, give me your list of your recent graduates, because we want that in-house now, instead of just getting a free consultant. That was a good project. That's for. That's for- yeah.
Tom Burns.
Tom Burns. Yeah, he was our MBA. but, yeah.
What's it like finding faculty first?
Are you worried? Let me give you all the teacher networks.
Right, sometimes your students can become faculty. I've done that in the past. Students,
coaching from Arizona. That's happening today.
That's a big
It's, yeah,
challenge sometimes. Like if you have an institution, obviously the institutions here are like leading in, but often we talk to community colleges where they don't have anybody that's sort of sitting in this role of thinking about how do we better align. And so it's really hard to assign responsibility to individual faculty, but if you don't have a faculty member that's driving, so
And they're
Oh,
providing
yeah.
statistics courses sometimes, they're interested in that.
but it's also hard because like the topic is cross-disciplinary. And so there's not necessarily, and often if it's owned by someone of your science faculty, they're not necessarily thinking about a holistic approach. They're sort of focused on like, well, I know your science faculty, you're some of this for me. I had a question because I want to challenge my assumption. We talk to a lot of community colleges, and when we do, they often will say that they have these programs and certifications, and the struggle for them is actually filling those programs and finding students to opt into them. Is that what you're seeing, or do you feel like is this a supply or demand issue? Do we need to focus on the demand side, or are there more students looking for this? We just need to find more courses and certifications to provide them.
I feel like some of this is also with the IT industry, networking, cybersecurity. They're all going to computer science, and they all take computer science. And then later on, they figure out, because I get a lot of adults that have master's degrees that come back to my class to learn networking because they're a computer science major, and they don't know about networking.
Yeah.
They're in a networking field, they're in IT. I have a computer science background, I've never do that. I'm in IT is tangential, but they don't know. The IT industry and the four-year universities are way behind in not having a cybersecurity degree or a network degree attached to it. It's all computer science. They funnel everybody through that coding theory stuff, and then they're spit out and put into IT. So it's, all of our students are taking AP computer science in their school. That's what they think is IT. It can be, but could also be not. Application.
That seems to be so common in all of our ICT digital media programs that the people, most of the students in the class already have bachelor's degrees and they're coming back for practical knowledge. But Alex asked a great question. How do we get the students who are on that AP track to take some of these courses, dual enrollment, take your first 2 years at community college and take some of these courses before you transfer. I think it's a perception and mindset.
I think you're answering the question by building the awareness.
Yeah.
To go and tell everybody like what this is, master's in IT, and that all the time asking, what is your actual job? I don't know. Are you data analytics? Are you business intelligence? What are you? What do you do? Right? I have no idea. So when somebody asks me or I have to write it down, I say it's computer science. And so if I don't know, imagine students trying to get into this.
Right.
Like you can see what they do, right? Like, and I'm using all these personal examples because I see it from a personal standpoint, that I see the students and the industry, right? my son has to do a project when he's like in junior high. What do you want to do when you grow up? So he gets in our bed, he props his feet up, he puts a laptop on it, and he starts doing this. What's that? I want to do what Dad does. And now here we are, pandemic, right? Everybody's doing that. But what are you doing? Like, what service do you provide? Who do you provide it for? What's it called? I teach career counseling, so this is really a passion of mine. Like, they want a job, they don't know what it's called, they don't know how to get to it, the major doesn't align, nobody asked them. They don't want to be like, we had the great resignation yesterday or whatever. Half the people are like, I don't want to work at all. Right? And so I think the awareness part is so important, because like, I wouldn't be so passionate about this if I wasn't aware of what STEM does for like women or for, you know, people of color, you know, marginalized students. I wouldn't know what opportunities are out there if I wasn't educated on it.
Well, and it's also, so the awareness piece and bringing in the new students, but targeting existing workers.
Oh, for sure.
And letting those businesses understand that you need to upskill these people to get into these data analytics and AI jobs and send them back to the colleges.
Yeah, and there's so many barriers. Like, okay, do you want the bachelor's degree? Do you not want the bachelor's degree? Right? It's like we screen them out because they don't have the bachelor's degree, but you probably screened out some really good programmers or some really good perspective. You know, it's like, just because you don't have the education does not mean you're not going to be great at that job. Right? But at the same time, we want them to we want to make sure they have the foundational skills. So everywhere.
So I think Cisco did
train all
a
of us.
really good job 25 years ago of developing this program, Cisco had. And it was in high schools
Yeah,
first, and only in high schools. Because it was during, we were connecting all the schools to the internet in the late 90s, middle 90s. They had no connections. They got the campuses and hooked up all the routers and switches and everything. There was nobody there on campus, they would keep it running. Except the students. They had an interest, they were doing bulletin boards, they were into it. And they've done a good service for their company by having their campus. They're now 2 million students around the world. So many engineers, they don't have a degree. Those skills they've got.
But it's the medium-sized companies that are willing to accept a new employee that doesn't have a bachelor's degree, that just has these couple of
Yes.
certificates.
Yeah.
But if you're looking at Adobe and Disney, that's like the end of people's careers.
Right.
Like, in education, we've been saying, whatever, we don't know how are we going to be preparing students for the future of jobs because they change the path, they don't even exist, right?
Right.
We always say that, right? Right, so now we're saying we have to make them aware of what's coming, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we are officially at 9:40, so I am going to stop the recording, but we can continue the discussion.
Yeah. We can leave, but I think these are discussions